Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, welcome back to the Stream Center. Let's go. This is this week's episode of Run for Fun. Now, we designed this show to explain how to enjoy the sport of distance running and walking. And there are plenty of articles and shows out there that are talking about getting faster and running harder, but we wanted to focus on how to show up every day excited and ready to be active for years and years to come. So I'm your host, Leigh Spann. I'm a meteorologist at WFLA here in Tampa, but I'm also an avid runner, and wish someone had gotten to me with some of the things that we talk about on this show some 15 years ago, because I probably wouldn't have spent so many years running myself out all the time. So thanks, of course, to my coach Maria, for reaching me and having me buy into this, the love of running, the joy of running, and not just focusing on what that end goal is.
That's right. We got to love it, right? Or we won't stick with it.
Right. The idea is to just run and be active and healthy for a very long time. And so we had a big race here in the Tampa area this weekend.
We sure did.
It's a whole weekend.
Coach was crying a lot this weekend.
Our coach, we got big kudos from our coach.
It was actually the first time in 11 years I haven't been at Gasparilla. And I didn't plan that well. But I was so proud of everybody. Everybody did so well. It was so fun to watch everybody succeed and help each other, like without me there.
Yeah.
We had lots of PRs, lots of people pacing each other, lots of people cheering. It was great.
Yeah, because it's 2 full days or two mornings. So on Saturday, it's a 15K, which is a little over 9 miles, and a 5K. And there's thousands of people out on Bayshore. And then if you're not running, then a lot of people come out and cheer. And then the next day on Sunday is a half marathon and the 8K. And then the people who ran on Saturday sometimes come back out and cheer for the folks on Sunday. And it was just the most beautiful day, blue skies.
It was. The sunrise pictures. It was. And it's not always like that.
Yeah, it's not always like
that. One
many
thing
years
is,
it's not.
Run Gasparilla does such a great job. I mean, it is such a great race. If you have not come to run it, you should come to run it. Tampa is very fun. We have a good time. It's just really nicely run.
Yes, and it starts, in downtown, runs all the way down Bayshore. So here are some of the pictures from our cheer station. My friend Kim snapped this picture of me. This is about 1 mile from the finish line of the half marathon, and then a couple of our run group there at the finish line after running the half marathon on Sunday. But look at that blue sky. I mean, it was Chamber of Commerce Day to have 30,000 people over the weekend.
It was
running.
Beautiful. Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. And everybody, I love when the weather's like that, because true potential shows, and people it's much easier for me to write pace plans. I will say that. But everybody's true potential shows. And so even if it's not quite your day, you're not going to feel like garbage.
Yeah, you felt pretty good.
Yeah,
you felt pretty
like
good.
Garbage. Yeah.
The low humidity. I mean, it was still warm. I mean, the sun came up. They do a very good job on Sunday. They have the half marathon start at 6 a.m.,
which is brilliant. That's brilliant.
There's many times when it is hot. So I was only out in the sun. The sun rises around 7 o'clock on Sunday, and so less than an hour where the sun was up. So, and it was already starting to get toasty.
Yeah, it was. The last bit was hot, but everybody managed it well. Everybody carbo loaded well. I mean, it's so great when you see people actually learning to do it for themselves, and I don't have to repeat myself as much. And everybody just did really, really well. It was amazing.
All right, so now I have confession time. I already told Coach that I was.
She told me before.
Yeah,
she warned me.
I was a bad post-race runner. We have talked about this AdNauseum on this show, that you can have, your celebratory drink as long as within 45 minutes after you finish the race that you've had some electrolytes and you've had some protein in your body. You're starting to give your body back the things that it lost, and then you can have that beer. Well, I finished the race.
Oopsies.
And then I got somewhere. I had a bottle of water, but no electrolytes. And about an hour later, I had a beer. And it was about another hour. So 2.5 hours after my race, I had my first electrolytes.
Ouch.
It was bad. I was bad. I knew I was going to have to come in and
And she's extra sore today, so she's getting her karma for that.
Yes. My muscles were like, okay, we needed help, and you gave us a glass of beer.
Really, the biggest thing about that is being in the deficit for so long.
Yeah, it was bad, and I could feel it, but I didn't have a lot of access to making excuses. Now there wasn't. I didn't have any. I didn't bring any. Blah blah.
You don't have any blood sugar problems? Nothing happened?
No,
well, that's good.
No. It was just that I could feel that I was starting to fade a little bit by the time I got back to my house, and I had the electrolytes, and I took a quick protein shake and then got in the shower. I could already feel myself coming back.
I will turn into a raging lunatic if I go too long. On a hot day, it's really hard for me to get the stuff in, but after a race, if I don't get it right in, my blood sugar drops. I'm like ugly. I get hangry.
Yeah, I was still sort of, I enjoyed the race so much that I was still living off sort of like the high of how fun it was and how much and being with all my friends, but I could tell I needed the electrolytes. But so on top of that, I just wanted to tell everybody that even though I know better, sometimes we don't do better, and that I could, so somewhere.
And she hasn't raced a half in a while, so we'll give her a little.
I had my beer.
Free pass.
Transitioning now into the topic of the day, which if you see at the bottom of the screen is dealing with, quote, smaller aches and pains of running, because we say that running is fun, but if you have this little nagging feeling all the time, that sometimes causes people to say it's not fun. And so I wanted to talk about the first one, which is chafing, because I got that on Saturday. So on Sunday.
Nobody is immune to chafing. It's not a thing.
So I'm usually very good about putting on Body Glide is what I have, but it's just like it looks like a stick of deodorant. You just put it on anywhere where you think skin might rub against each other, and I'm usually 100%. I got all the way to the race and thought, oh, we're going to put Glide on, but because I'm usually have it on and I don't have any chafing problems, I'm like, I don't normally chafe. It's fine. Oh, I don't normally chafe because I put the Body Glide on.
Yeah, you forget sometimes, right?
So about mile 5, I was like, ooh. Well, that's not going to be good.
Yeah, when it's mile 5 and oh man, this is going to get real ugly by 13.
Yeah, 8 more miles to go. And so it started under my arms. It got between my legs by about mile 8. And there's really nothing I could do about it other than try to put it out of my brain. So let's talk about that, because that's something that might cause people to not enjoy running, is because they'll get chafing. So other than the Body Glides, I mean, I was looking for Vaseline. I was looking for anything, but
Aquaphor will work. Vaseline will work. Body Glide does work the best.
It's not as goopy.
Yeah. My son's girlfriend, she was chafing, and she thought it was her shorts. And I was like, well, have you ever tried Body Glide? And she was like, I haven't. And then we went over Christmas break. We went for a run, and Sam kept asking her, are you gliding? Are you gliding? And I'm like, I had forgotten that I told her about that. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that he's like encouraging her to glide. Like gliding is a nice thing. Like when you're running, you should feel like you're gliding. And then he's like, no, I was asking her if she was chafing in a nicer way. I'm like, oh, she was gliding. That makes sense. She didn't have any chafing. Okay, so if you are somebody that has, like, sometimes the thinner the skin, the worse the chafe is. It's just, I get it a lot. Just put Glide on. It makes it so much better, and then you can be gliding.
You can be just gliding along, and it doesn't hurt anymore. Because I posted about it on social media that I had, I was like, I started to have some chafing, and someone asked, is there anything you could do? And I go, yes, there is something I could do. I could have put the Body Glide on. I could have done the pre-work, but once it starts and you're on the course, at that point, it's too late. So just remember, if you get, and there's also, if you want to wear the tighter clothes as well. We've talked about if you wear the compression.
I'll wear longer pants sometimes, but it's hot sometimes.
It is hot. So on this day, I was definitely wearing shorts and a tank top, and I should have put the Glide on. So I wanted to talk about that. That is one thing that can easily be taken care of with the right. And that stick of Body Glide is like $5. It lasts you for so long.
And lube all the areas.
Yes, all of them.
Do it all the areas. Even in your butt. Do your butt.
In the crack.
All the cracks. Like, it just makes life so much better. It is not fun to get in the shower after chafing, and that will ruin. And actually, sometimes if you chafe badly enough, you can't run for a few days because it's so uncomfortable. Yeah. So again, the goal is to always run.
Always run.
Like, I cannot tell you how many people are like, oh my gosh, I feel so fat if I need Body Glide. I'm like, fat? What? I have never heard of that. Like, elite runners use Body Glide.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a like you're heavy or thin or whatever it is. Everybody can chafe. So
You're doing this
just
for
put it
hours.
on. Just put it on. Yeah.
Just enjoy.
Yeah.
It's a cheap way to keep from any aches and pains.
Happy.
So, all right. So that's number one because I was bad at that. I was bad at recovery. So I'm just putting it all out there so that I can be better next time or not forget my.
It's all a learning lesson.
It's all a
right?
learning lesson.
We learn even though we've raced a lot. We keep learning, right? Sometimes we need reminders.
Yeah. So is there, Maria? Let's go on to another ache that you hear from people. That they're like, oh, well, I don't like running. This is maybe not people who run on a regular basis, but where you hear from people like, oh, I don't run because I always feel
oh
like
my
this.
gosh, I hear that all the time. First of all, it's about expectations, right? So if you're a new runner, expect that there's going to be a lot of things that come up, especially those first 2 years, because your body is getting used to doing something it's never done before. And we are built to run. Like we used to have to, back in the day, chase after our food. We are humans and we're supposed to run. So none of this garbage about, oh, I can't run, it's not good for you. If you want to run, you can run. You just have to be a little patient because, and you can't go too much too soon. Mm-hmm. The biggest mistake is people run too much too soon. And then we have all the little aches and pains that come up. Usually it's typically shin splints is first.
That's usually something that I never had. So
that's lucky for you.
Yeah, I actually, because I was going to ask you, what does it feel like? What's the like, so that you can identify the pain, so that you can start alleviating it. Like, what's the process there?
So, shin splints start hurting usually in the beginning of the run, and then they get better as you go. What people don't know about shin splints is it's typically water under the shin. It's a little inflammation. If you keep running on shin splints, it can turn into a stress fracture, which stress fracture is the only thing that I tell people you cannot run through. You have to let the bone heal. So we want to avoid that at all costs. So that doesn't mean not run because people are like, oh, my shins hurt. I got to not run. Typically it means back off. It means check your running shoes first. Go to a good store. We've given you many stores in the area that have really good gait analysis. Have somebody check your form and your shoes. Once you have good shoes and it's still happening, I always tell people to make sure they get a baseline blood work because sometimes if you have low vitamin D, you can also have shin splints. Some people that run on treadmills, they get shin splints because they're afraid of hitting that lip in the front of a treadmill, and so they keep their toes pointed up. So if you're doing that when you're running and you're heel striking, that's the form that you would want to change because you're putting a lot of pressure on your shins having your foot flexed up like this. You want your feet to be relaxed when you're running.
I can see that because when the few times I've been on a treadmill, there's the belt and then there's that plastic part,
and it's scary.
Don't want to step on that. So
yes,
you're sort of subconsciously
typically
keeping your toes up.
I notice people on treadmills tend to have that happen. Abby has shin splints right now. And so what we did with her, Abby's my daughter. So we backed her off because a lot of times people are like, shin splints, I got to stop running. Well, Abby's new to distance. And so it's pretty normal when you're getting into distance for the first time to get stress fractures, shin splints. But if you just quit running, when you start again, your shin splints are coming right back. So you're not solving the problem by resting. If it keeps getting worse, go to a PT. You can go to a PT. The PT will look at your form, will give you some exercises. You can do a lot of exercises for shin splints specifically, like calf raises. I call them duck walks, where you keep your legs really straight and you keep your toes up and you walk backwards. And that strengthens that shin muscle. So there's a lot of exercises you can do to help ice the shins, but don't quit running. Like that's the worst thing you can do is quit running.
Because I was going to say, so ice, because if there's inflammation, that's what that. So
yes.
Would using like a compression sock help at all?
Compression can help. Yep. Yeah. Usually ice, I get a Dixie cup and I fill it up with water, and then I tear the top of the Dixie cup off, and then I have a little holder for my little. And I go up and down the shin to ice them. And you want to do that for 20 minutes. It's a long time. Or you can put your legs in ice buckets. That can help. The other exercise you can do is you can write the ABCs with your toes. So if you're on the couch watching
Doing it now.
Netflix, write your ABCs with your toes.
Okay.
That works that muscle too. Just go through the whole alphabet.
Okay, so there's inflammation under there. So you want to work the muscle to
Make the muscles around it stronger
Okay.
because it's too much pressure on your shin. A lot of times you're pronating a little bit and that's what happens. So you can get arch supports. Arch supports can help, but you really want to get a professional to look at that. You can try some insoles from the store, but that can create other problems
Yep.
if you're not, if you're not pronating. I mean, that can turn you out and then you have a host of other issues. So really go see a running specialist in the shoe department because and make sure you go to a good shoe store because there's a lot of shoe stores. Like I love Dick's for a lot of good things, but they don't usually have shoe specialists working the floor that know about running. So you need to go to a running
shoe store,
specialty store
Yeah.
just one time at least to get a good shoe. And then once you've tried all those things, just back off on the running. It's best to back off. I would say like if you're running 3 or 4 days a week and you're running like 45 minutes, back off to 20 minutes 3 or 4 days a week until it goes away, until your body gets used to it. It's not going to just go away if you're just gonna stop.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away if you just don't do anything.
Yeah.
So do your exercises, do your icing, go see somebody. And then really anytime you have any of these small things come up, you do have to kind of do the unsexy work around it till it goes away.
Because if you don't, then it becomes a much bigger problem.
Bigger ache.
Yes.
And then those bigger aches and pains, you do have to take time off. And then we regress. And we don't want to regress. Rule of thumb with most of my people, if they have something small come up, I immediately take 3 days off to get the inflammation down. And then we reduce mileage, which is why they get mad and they don't tell me when something creeps up because I'm like, they know I'm going to tell them 3 days off. But 3 days off is much better than taking 3 months off. You don't lose anything in 3 days.
Right.
So you don't lose anything in a week off. But if you're taking 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks off, then we start to lose a little bit of fitness and then we got to build it back up. And it's frustrating. So don't just run through it.
We had it. Yes, don't just run through it. That was one of our producers here. She's like, I've just started running. I'm having shin splints. And I obviously don't know anything about her, but the first thing I said is, because I'm assuming as people start, they're still wearing whatever workout shoes they've had in their closet for like just, I don't know what you're wearing. I don't know but just go to a running store, have them, buy the shoes that they choose for you and see if that gets better. And that's how, so
and
hopefully.
then secondly, I would say shorten your stride. Shorten your stride. If you shorten your stride, think light on your feet, that's going to stop. I mean, it's really hard to shorten your stride and run with your toe up. Yeah. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's really hard.
And if you
want
want more,
that.
We have a whole episode on that on running
do.
form. So if that's something that you feel like we don't quite understand what we're talking about we talked about cadence, and so anyway, all that. The other thing that I was saying really I felt more when I started running, and my husband still gets it some, is that side stitch.
Oh,
like that side stitch that you're running, and it feels like when you were a little kid, and it would just so. And this is, they haven't really been found like a real like medical cause for it, right?
Yeah.
It just hurts.
Typically, it's when you're running too fast or you ate something wrong. You don't have enough carbohydrates. A lot of times, your stomach is working too hard to digest, or if you're eating too much fiber, and you can't use your fuel properly, is usually when that happens. Or if you are running too hard, harder than you're ready to run yet.
Right.
That's when that side stitch will happen. You can you want to try to breathe through a side stitch, like really exhale on the opposite side of the stitch.
Okay. Walk me through that. What does that mean?
When you're running,
running.
If it's on your right side, every time you land on your left foot, I exhale forcefully.
Okay.
And then that forces me to pull a big breath in, and that can sometimes make it go away. Depending, I mean, it's happened to me in a couple races. Typically, it's when I go out too fast. I'm not carbo loaded enough. I'm trying to be a little bit more aggressive than I probably should have been. But you can, if worst case scenario, you just walk it off up a couple seconds and then it should go away. But it can be frustrating when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's more frustrating than any sort of injury. I mean, it's not an injury, it's not a problem. It's just frustrating. You want to go faster. But that's a real indication, like especially with people who are beginning to run, they go, oh, well, my side hurts so much. Well, slow down.
Yes, slow down.
Because we all just think that as little kids, we would just run. And it's like, well, now we have to be a little more conscious of our running where it's not quite so all out all the time.
So much of running is setting your ego aside and knowing where you are at all times.
All the time. All
even
13 miles on Sunday.
For me, I haven't done a lot of pace work or running or racing since pre-COVID. I really haven't. And so I've done a lot of easy miles, but I haven't done hardly. I mean, I've gotten back into track recently, but I'm not running where I used to be. So if I tried to go back on the track and tried to run as hard as I was running pre-COVID, I would have a side stitch. And then I'd be discouraged and I'd be like, oh, I lost so much fitness and why am I such a failure? But instead of doing that, I set my ego aside and say, okay, where am I today? And I try to kind of sneak up on stuff and say, oh, okay, now that's starting to feel a little better. It's starting to feel a little better because we really want to build confidence. And a side stitch does not build your confidence. No. It really makes you feel defeated and like you've lost a bunch of fitness. And you can't get stronger if you are not admitting where you are. It's really the key, especially as we get older. And if you want to run longer, we're not going to stay in prime time fitness all the time. It's not possible. Yeah. So we have to let our fitness go for a little bit. Then we rebuild it. Then we let our fitness go a little bit. Then we rebuild it. And that's just kind of the game you play in longevity. And the side stitch we want to avoid because that just makes us feel lousy.
It does not feel good. And I do think that a lot of it is you're trying to go too hard. And so that's just it's your body saying,
like here's the thing about pain. It's pretty cool because it tells us what we need to work on, right? Pain we should not ignore. I use Brian Fullen. Brian Fullen always talks about the red light, green light, yellow light. And he says, hope I get this right, Brian, but he gets it. He says that if you have a pain when you start your run and it goes away while you're running, that's a yellow light. That means proceed with caution. If you have a pain and you start running and it gets worse while you're running, that's a red light. That means you need to see a doctor.
Yeah.
So
it's so I'll move on to the next thing because I've also never had plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, I've not. You need to knock on wood.
I know.
That's a nasty one.
Because this one may actually keep you sidelined a little more than some of these other smaller aches and pains. But it's
very common in Florida.
Doesn't it? It does get better. Like the morning is when it hurts the worst.
Yeah.
And then it gets better, so you might let it go for too long.
Yeah. And in Florida, we wear flat shoes all the time. Yes. We wear flip-flops, which I am not a fan of flip-flops without support. So don't do that. Plantar fasciitis is, Cody calls it plantar fascia tightness.
That's what it is.
Yeah, because it starts in your calf. It's usually from your calf being too tight, and then it pulls on the plantar, and then it just wreaks havoc on your feet.
So what does it feel like so people can identify it so that they can start
alleviating
it?
Well, it starts, and it kind of creeps up on you. That's the one that you have to really kind of be careful of, because when you wake up in the morning, when you first step on the ground, you'll start to feel pain. And then as you keep going, it will warm up and that tendon gets a little warmer, and so it won't hurt as much. And then if you sit down for a while, every time you stand up and you step on the floor again, it's going to have this. So,
and the pain is in the heel.
It starts in the heel, but then it can go all the way up your foot. So that it can be debilitating if you have bad plantar fasciitis. So I would want to avoid that at all costs. There are a lot of things you can do for plantar. Like, number one, foam roll your calf, foam roll your calf, foam roll your calf.
Should we foam roll our calves?
Yeah. You need to do it like all the time. Before you run, after you run, before you go to bed, just do it. And there is a specific way to do it. You can look up online. Cody has classes at St. Pete Running Company that he teaches you how to foam roll your calf. So call and see if you can and ask. And even if he doesn't have a class right now, if you go in and tell any of Cody's staff members, hey, I've got plantar fasciitis, they're going to literally teach you this. So
Nobody wants anyone to have this.
No.
That's why I needed to knock on wood about.
Yeah. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. Then you want to ice it. So when you ice after you run, I usually put some kind of water bottle in the freezer, freeze it, and then you can roll your foot on it. Just roll your foot 20 minutes. 20 minutes is, you want to ice anytime you have any niggly thing going on. Ice after, heat before. So heat before, okay. Yeah. So if it's really hurting, you can heat up the planter, foam roll, heat it up with a heating pad, go for a run, ice after.
So okay, because you say it kind of starts in the calf.
Mm-hmm.
So why
you're not going to feel it in the calf, though.
So why does it hurt in the foot? Everything's connected?
Yeah, it's all connected. Yeah. Actually, I think Brian says that it can go all the way up to your glute, actually. But it's not typically people that run up on their toes more have a tendency to get it because they're using their calf more. So just keep an eye on it. It's very common, very, very common. And then while you're healing it, do not wear flat shoes. It's actually the only time I'll be like, wear a heel.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. So like a heeled boot or a heel, anything with
anything that keeps you flexed up a little bit. And sometimes you need to put a heel lift in your shoe for a little bit. Sometimes like just a higher drop shoe will help. But whatever you do, don't just ignore it. Don't ignore it and think it's going to go away.
Because not only is it painful, but it can really. It
can halt your running.
Like that their plantar like that ligament broke.
Oh yeah, and honestly, I've had quite a few runners have that, and actually, I don't hate it because you just did your own surgery. Oh. Like that's what they do.
Okay,
they're not giving you good tricks right now, but
don't
what
they do.
But when you have severe plantar fasciitis, that plantar gets so tight they have to cut it, and so we don't want to have surgery. Right. That's not what we want. But a lot of times if it breaks, it'll heal itself. And then there's lots of things you could do, like shockwave therapy really helps with it. Brian Fulham does that at Elite Sports Podiatry. He does shockwave that can help, heal. Those tendons don't get a lot of blood, and that's the problem. So we have to baby it and get that blood flow to the area. When you ice it, it gets the inflammation down, and then the blood flow comes right back to the area after you're icing. And so that kind of rushes that and helps it heal. So there's lots of ways to do that. I don't worry so much about it breaking, although it is painful and it stinks. And you'll be off for a long time. So we don't want to be off, right? Like how many times do I have to say, we don't want to be off?
Show up. You got to show up.
We got to show up. So I don't suggest running through plantar, but get it looked at. Get it looked at.
And do the prep work and the after work so that you can at least, even if it's much, much less running, you can still get out there if you heat it up, you do the rolling, and then you ice it.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, I've been running since I was 19. I'm about to be 44. I have had to stop for injuries maybe twice in 25 years of running. Twice. And now I know I'm an insane person, but even we talk about cranky butt. That's another one that can come up.
That's next.
Cranky butt. That's when your piriformis, 20% of the population, actually their sciatic nerves runs through their piriformis. So that can run down your leg. That can be a problem. Another one to shorten your stride for. Foam rolling, glute work, strength training, all that stuff can help with that. But like I always tell you, put a ball on your butt.
I bought this thing. If you're looking, then now if I sit for, I can tell the difference about 45 minutes, not a problem. After 45 minutes, under here on my left side. So is it usually just one side that people favor?
Usually one side. Yeah, it's usually your weak side, or it could be your dominant side that's doing extra work for your weak side, because we always have one side that's weaker than the other, which is why I say with strength training, do a lot of one-legged things, because always your body is going to overcompensate. So if you have a weak leg, the dominant leg's always going to work harder. Mm-hmm. So if you separate them and do one-legged squats and stuff like that, then you kind of trick your body.
So for cranky butt, what do I need to do to help my cranky butt?
So cranky butt, you sit and rotate. That's what I tell people. Okay. Sit on that ball and rotate. kind of blood flow. Again, you're getting blood flow to the area. Foam roll all your glute muscles. And then I always have people do step-ups. Step-ups help.
Because you're in your
strengthening.
one leg.
Yep, you're strengthening your glute area and the
so
muscles around it.
Like onto a step, like like a curb, just a little bit higher or something higher than that.
You want to do a little higher than that. Something where you really get that glute activation. And then, it tends to happen with weak glutes. So if we're not using your glutes enough when we're running, that can happen. So,
all right. Well, I haven't had planners, but I've got cranky butt.
High hamstring issues and cranky butt that comes up. High hamstring tendonitis can happen. That one, you got to back up on speed. A lot of people with hamstring issues think, oh, I got to stretch. And I'm like, don't stretch your hamstring when it's hurting.
Good to know, because that's the first thing I would think as well.
Everybody says that. But you really want to foam roll and heal it. And then you can add stretching back. But overstretching your hamstring will cause injury and make the injury worse. So,
and where does, you say high hamstring, I'm thinking that's really the crease of the butt, right?
Okay. Right at that little crook in your butt.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Typically, that's from doing too much speed work. All of these injuries can be avoided for the most part if you are slower than you think you should be as you're ramping up your miles, or being really careful with speed. Which is why having a coach is cool, because I'm here to be okay, now we need to take 3 days off. And y'all hate me, but
we never hate you. Even though my text,
I don't know about that.
I text you, please don't hate me. Please don't hate me.
Yeah. I got that this weekend. But yeah, it's we're here to keep your mind right. Hey, perspective is, we gotta chill. Now, if you have a big race coming up, sometimes I'll be take 2 weeks off. If you're on a taper and something's bothering you, which all of these little niggles and stuff come up in a taper, almost always, because you're coming off your highest mileage weeks usually. And so you're tired and you're grouchy and your immune system is can I have a break? You're sharpening the pencil as sharp as you can sharpen it without breaking it. And so in the taper is a lot of times when people are oh, I feel like crap. Oh, I'm going to have a bad race. Oh, my knee hurts. Oh, I cannot tell you all the things that come up. I'm tired. My legs don't feel fresh. Well, your legs aren't going to feel fresh yet.
Right.
In a taper. They shouldn't.
That's why you have the taper.
Yes, it's why we have the taper. Yes. So don't freak out about the little things that come out ever, but they're definitely going to come out in a taper. Expectations, right? Expectations are winning at life. Expect that the first 2 years of your running, there's going to be little things that come up. We're not going to ignore them, right? We're not going to ignore them. We're going to do them. We're going to change things. We're going to ask for help.
We're not going to stop.
There's no reason to not ask for help.
We're all.
And except for if you're not asking the right person for help. But for the most part, I wouldn't say go to Google and be Google, this hurts. And then they're going to be you have cancer.
Yes, you're going to die. Yeah. One of the symptoms is death. Every
plantar fasciitis
time
leads to cancer in the plantar.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to get in trouble for that comment. But anyway, don't Google things. That's not a good place to get help. Go to a seasoned runner, and also don't go to the seasoned runner that's hurt all the time. Go to the seasoned runner. There is this whole thing in running, which just cracks me up. If you're in the wrong group, people brag about injuries. They're oh my gosh, this is my badge of honor. I got an injury. And I'm I'm going to be honest. I try to hide my injuries because I'm I'm a coach. I should know better. I'm not saying injuries don't happen. They do. You can do everything right. And injuries, it's a high injury sport. However, we should try to avoid them like the plague. We should try to. That's the end of story. There's no other story than that. We should try to avoid them.
And I think, but ends up being, I think, the theme of most of these shows is to slow down.
Yeah.
Because, if you're always pushing yourself all the time, that's where some of these injuries are going to start in the aches and pains range and go until you don't want to, it's not fun anymore. And I'm going to figure out something else. I'm going to stop running. And
almost always when we have an injury and I'm coaching somebody, I look back at their training log and I can almost tell where we got it. I can almost tell. It's not, and that's a learning experience, right? You break that pencil sometimes when you're trying to sharpen it, and it's life. It happens. Cross training it's a good time to have cross training come out because, as long as it doesn't hurt, you can do it. So if something's bothering you and you don't want to lose fitness, switch to something that doesn't hurt. Walking, elliptical, biking, swimming. Switch to something else, and then you don't lose anything.
Right.
Like I had a stress fracture in 2008. Actually, this was structural, and I had it exact same spot on both shins.
Wow.
I'm like, ooh. So I had to have orthotics made, and I was ticked off because I was training for a marathon, and I had to take 8 weeks off.
8 weeks.
Yep. It was tragic. And I was like at the height of my craziness. So I was like biking a lot. I swam a lot, and I hate swimming, but I made myself swim because I didn't want to lose anything. When I got hurt, before I got hurt, I was running like a 21:40. And after being off for 8 weeks, I went and ran the Boston 5K in 22:02.
After 8 weeks of not running.
8 weeks of not running.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So like I lost no fitness. And the goal should be don't lose fitness, right? If we've worked so hard to gain the fitness, we don't want to lose the fitness. So hang your hat up and say, hey, I made a mistake. I know what my mistake was. I had run a marathon and I thought I didn't get the time I wanted because it was hot and I didn't know about dew point then. And I'm like, I'm just going to sign up for another marathon and I'm going to show everybody that I can do it anyway.
I mean, yeah, you showed them.
I showed them with a good 10-miler and a stress fracture. So
Yep.
if you don't recover enough, if you're running too fast all the time, it's going to catch up to you. It just is.
Yeah. And that's not what we want. We want to avoid all of that so that we can be injury-free and have fun and like what we did over the weekend. That was just a fun. Everyone had put in the work. Everyone had fun, and that's what it's all about.
And injuries, like I was talking to Cheryl Zimbrowski on Saturday. I think it was day before Saturday. We were talking about her race coming up, and she was like, I will never quit running because my quality of life is so good.
And remind people how old Cheryl is.
Cheryl, like
she is getting PRs later in life.
I'm going to be completely transparent. I told Luke when I was writing, like when I write training plans, I look at everybody's data and I individually write the training plans. I look at her data sometimes and I'm like, forget that she's not 40.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep, she's doing good. Yep.
She's in her 60s.
I mean,
right?
67.
67. Wow.
She is rocking her life right now. But she's doing all the unsexy stuff. Like she even I was like, do you think you could eat more calories? She's like, I'm eating 2,400 calories. I'm like, you're 67 and you're eating 2,400 calories? You are my idol, Cheryl. Like this is like, and so she's doing the things that are uncomfortable for her to do because her quality of life at 67, she will tell you all of this. Like
she's a nurse too, so she knows what she's,
her quality of life right now. She's got friends that run. She'll tell you the story that before she started running, she couldn't even walk upstairs and she didn't feel like an athlete. And then this, like she amazes me on so many levels. I sent her a message the other day and I was like, have you ever age graded your race results? And she's like, what is that? And so I got out the age graded calculator and I plugged in her Gasparilla time and it came out like she would have run like in her, I think I plugged in 30 and she would have run like a 106 15K, which is like insanely fast.
Yeah.
Like back in then. I'm like, if I had known you
40 years ago,
40 years ago and I was coaching you, like, and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, except I would have been 7.
Yeah.
But I could have been a child prodigy coach, maybe. I don't know.
It's all theory. Because,
It's all theory, but what a way to that's what we want. We want the quality of life. If you're running injured and have niggles and stuff like that, it's not fun.
Right.
It's not going to be fun and you're not going to stick to it. So, and Cheryl has had she's had some injuries. Yeah. Everybody has injuries. But when you take the time off and you learn how to do things differently, it's not so daunting. It's not as daunting when you have other things to do. And then sometimes when it's taken away, you're like, oh man, my quality of life is really good. So I don't want to do that again.
Right. And I think that could lead into, you've basically been talking about it, your coach's drill. I thought was really, I mean, it's a little bit of what we've been talking about, but Coach Maria gets a full minute to talk about in this 1 minute coach's drill. Be patient.
Also, we need to have Cheryl on the show.
Yes, we do.
So be patient is a big one because none of us really love to be patient, myself included. I had to tell myself this morning with other life events today, and we always said that running is a metaphor for life. But in this case, if you are just starting running and everything is coming up, my knees hurt, my hips hurt. My mom just started the other day and she's like, my hips hurt when I'm running. I'm like, yep, that's normal. Like, it's normal to have little aches and pains. Don't get discouraged. Try to be patient. Try to be extra kind to yourself for a few days, but don't give up. Keep going. Keep showing up, and eventually, those little niggles will go away, and you'll get to this next level. That's like unlocking the next level of video game that you just have been dying to unlock for years. You're never going to want to quit.
So yes, and that's how. And I talk about that. I mean, sort of before the beginning of every one of these shows. It's like I wish that someone could have told me 15 years ago when I was starting that it's going to hurt. You're going to have these things, but be patient, slow down. Because I was just thinking, I didn't talk to anyone. I was just out running by myself for, many years. Mm-hmm. And it would have been so nice to have been, told that these things are supposed to hurt. You'll be fine. And then, if you slow down, they'll go away sooner. All those things. It just would have been nice to have gotten to myself 15 years before, before.
Yeah, and there's so much information out there now. Like, you can literally, if you go on TikTok, you can even say, I'm having plantar fasciitis, exercises for plantar fasciitis, and you'll get a bunch of exercises that you can do. So we didn't have that.
Right.
So
we had WebMD that tells us who's going to die.
WebMD that we're going to die from running.
That's it.
Or your knees are going to, that's the biggest one. But there's so many, we have so much information out there, and ask us. Ask on Strava. Yeah. If you're on Strava, I love to answer questions. I will talk about running all day long, every day. Like, people will say to me all the time, oh, I don't want to bug you. I'm like, bugging me?
Right.
This is my jam. I love to answer questions. And there are some weird things that will come up sometimes that and I've seen most of them. I've seen most of the weird things. Like, there's this weird tendon that I always forget the name of, and I really can't pronounce it. It's like, I think 20 or 30% of the population has it, and it's an unnecessary tendon in your calf. Okay. And it will just pop. It makes a terrible noise. Oh. And then you can't run for 2 weeks. And it literally, when it happens, people think their world is over. Yeah. And the first time it happened.
Because you think there's a pop.
And you're like, and you can't run. And you're like, and then obviously I sent them to Brian, because Brian is my knees under specialist. And he's like, oh, no, that's okay. It'll just reabsorb, and we need to baby it and then you can run fine. So don't panic. Yeah. There are some times to panic. If you have an acute injury like a hamstring, it will get bruised. Like, you'll see a bruise, then you should panic.
Oh, wow. I've never had that.
Like, a lot of people are like, I busted my hamstring, and I'm like, I don't see any bruise. Yeah. Like, there's grades and tears and stuff like that. We want to avoid that at all costs. Yeah. Avoid it. Typically, that's from running too fast.
Again, seems to be the theme. Seems to be, we all generally go back to stay within yourself. Don't be,
put your ego aside. Yes. And then you shouldn't have any problems. It's partly why I hate doing 200s on the track, because I'm like, all of my people are going to race these 200s. And then I call it
they're short.
Yeah. And then I'm like, I always say, don't bust a hamstring, guys. Like, don't go all balls out. Like, let's not do that. Let's not do that today. And they're like, well, coach, it's just so fun to run 200 fast. I'm like, it's not fun when you have to take 6 weeks off. It's not fun.
Don't worry. I will never tell you that it's fun to run fast. You won't ever hear that from me. All right, y'all. We're kind of out of time. It was wonderful. I do think that this is important for people to know that some things it's going to hurt, but we're going to figure out what they are, identify them so we can alleviate them, and we can keep going out there.
And remember, we're not doctors. We don't know.
Thank you.
We are not doctors. So We do our best. I know a lot of things, but I'm not a doctor. Don't diagnose anything by what I tell you. Just go see a doctor or ask me who to go see.
Right.
Because I have the greatest network.
She does. She really does.
I really have the greatest network,
Yep.
and I'm always happy to help with who to send you to. So find me, email me, send me messages, whatever you got to do, and I will help.
All right, y'all. See you later.
Bye.